Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns wrapped up 2 days of joint practices against the Eagles in Philadelphia earlier today. A day off tomorrow. Then it is the second preseason game, 1 o'clock Saturday kickoff. The Browns are saying that Shedeur Sanders is day-to-day unlikely to play with that oblique injury that he suffered yesterday early in the first day of joint practices. Former defensive lineman Marcus Spears from ESPN's Get Up, his thoughts on the Sanders injury.
Super unfortunate because what he showed in the preseason is that, in my opinion, he earned more reps in practice and an opportunity to play against good on good. And Dominique knows that, Grimes knows that being in camp, that is some valuable reps when you get a chance to play against your ones, especially with what Cleveland has. And I think for Shedeur, the most important thing now is to understand how the rehab process goes. Like, stay in tune, keep your mind going, make sure you're there and available to know all of the information that you need to know so you hit the field and you're back getting to it. It's just unfortunate because what it was becoming, what he made it, I believe, in this preseason, was a competition between him, Dylan Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett for that second spot behind Joe Flacco. And I thought if he came out and had another really good performance, there was no way to deny at least a true thought about movement up the depth chart.
We'll see. Again, preseason games are very different than regular season games. He played well. It's kind of interesting. All three of the backups now, the main backups, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders, dealing with some form or fashion of injury. Joe Flacco looked pretty good. Today was day 2 of joint practices. By all accounts, pretty good one for the Browns. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi in Philadelphia for the joint practices. Here's his takeaway from today's session.
I'm hearing that the offense finally connected on some big plays in this practice today. What did you see?
Much sharper, although they did have 3 drops. Shorter practice, only an hour, and they still had 3 drops, which is surprising because that hasn't plagued them until they got here. Flacco was real sharp on 2 touchdowns, one to Thrash and one to Njoku on a fade, and both of them in the red zone, so they're set up to try to score. And Dylan Gabriel got in the end zone on a nice pass to Fannin. Fannin had a role in 2 trick plays, one on a 2-point try, which was good, and another on a play from scrimmage where it was a backward pass to him and then a pass from Fannin to another receiver. So they did some trickery, and Fannin's involved in both of them. We've seen this at practice in Berea in the last week. It looks like Fannin's going to be a gadget guy, too.
Well, Fannin's going to be on the field a lot, and if you can use a tight end in different ways, it usually does open up some things against a defense. And remember, Eagles really, really good. Defending Super Bowl champs and expected to be in the mix again. Eagles beat reporter Elliot Shore-Parks, his thoughts on who had the better of things today in day 2. He thought the Eagles were the victor in day 1.
Day 2 of the joint practices against the Cleveland Browns, and Eagles caught the L today. I thought today the Cleveland Browns won the practice, and I thought there was one stretch of plays that really won that practice for them. The first one was Jerry Jeudy beating Quinchon Mitchell on a crossing route, about a 15, 20-yard touchdown. That's on one field. The next side of the field, the Eagles offense, a pass to Devontae Smith, batted down in the corner by Denzel Ward. Could have been a touchdown, should have been a touchdown, wasn't a touchdown. And then on the Browns offense, they had a few really nice plays in a row. They had a touchdown to Njoku in the corner of the end zone. They had a trick play that resulted in a rushing touchdown. I barely ever count rushing touchdowns, but they got that nice of a play and that wide open that it counts. And so I thought today was just kind of a disappointing performance from the offense. And I think the Eagles offensive players would tell you that. They need to be sharper. I thought, Jalen Hurts, no passing touchdowns today. The Eagles offense really didn't get in the end zone at all. I mean, they had the ball 5 times, no passing touchdowns. In the running game, they didn't run it in from far out either. So I thought the Eagles offense, once again, wasn't that sharp. I thought the offensive line struggled again. I think they would tell you that, going up against Myles Garrett. So rough day for the defense. The defense was able to win it for them on day 1. On day 2, they can't. So the Eagles lose this one.
And we will have plenty more on the Browns-Eagles joint practices. Lance Reisland will join us from Philadelphia. Quincy Carrier will be along a little bit later. So will Casey Kinnamon. Plenty to talk about the Browns. Let's turn our attention to the Guardians. Taking on the Marlins, game 2 of 3-game series. Gavin Williams on the mound against the Guardians, and it did not start well. Already 1-0 on a solo homer. Still in the first, a couple on. Jacob Marcy, that would be a 3-run homer, 4-0 Marlins. Marcy had a huge night, more on that in a minute. Bottom of the first, Stephen Kwan leads off with a solo blast to make it 4-1 Marlins. Kwan showing a little bit of power, good to see him hitting the ball. In the fourth, a couple of men on, Gabriel Aris says, everybody come on home. A 3-run homer to left field to knot it at 4. But it's Jacob Marcy again. Second home run of the game, the very next inning, a 2-run blast. 6-4 Marlins. He had 7 runs batted in, did Marcy. Graham Pauley, a home run to make it 7-4, and the Marlins just kept piling it on. 13-4 they win. Guardians remain a game back behind the Yankees for that final wild card spot. It is Tanner Bibee taking on Edward Cabrera in the series finale. Guardians trying to take the series. Lance Reisland joins us from Philadelphia on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Hey, high school football is just around the corner. It starts next Friday night. And Friday Night Huddle on Rock Entertainment Sports is the place to go for all the scores and highlights from across Ohio. Join legendary head coach Chuck Kyle and I Friday nights on Friday Night Huddle from 9:30 to 10 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We'll take your calls, have all the scores and highlights from across the state. Join us. It's Friday Night Huddle, 9:30, Rock Entertainment Sports Network. Head to watchRockEntertainmentSports.com, RockEntertainmentSports.com for channel information as well as programming information.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
Browns wrapped up day 2 of the joint practices against the Eagles. Now getting ready for the preseason game Saturday at 1 o'clock. Jerry Jeudy arriving at the Eagles practice facility, ready for day 2 of the joint practices. Rookie Mason Graham right there with him. Browns getting loose on the field. And again, can't show you any of the drills or the team drills. Shedeur Sanders in uniform, did not participate, is termed mild, but unlikely to play in the preseason game as well. Of course, Eagles means this guy is behind center. Jalen Hurts getting some work in before the team drills. And then at the end of practice, take a look at this one. Landon Dickerson, guard for the Eagles, who had surgery on his meniscus yesterday, sharing cold beverages with the Eagles as well as the Browns offensive linemen. That is the definition of good teammate, and you can see the bonding of offensive linemen. Let's welcome Lance Reisland into the show from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. He joins us from Philadelphia. Lance, you saw the joint practices. Cool moment at the end of that, as you can see the respect the offensive linemen have for one another.
Well, yeah, this was a tough test for both offensive lines. Both defensive lines were very, very good both days. I thought the Browns' defensive line was as advertised going into it. Their ability to penetrate made things really, really tough. I would say the only thing that they would have to work on it when they play the Eagles is the ability to contain Jalen Hurts when he breaks contained or the play breaks down. But up front, they did a great job. Myles Garrett was absolutely unblockable today. Mason Graham was really, really good. Same goes for the Eagles' defensive line. Carter and Davis inside are just – it's hard to explain how big those two guys are when you see them in person. They're just immovable objects. But I thought as a whole, both days, the Browns did really, really well. Offensively, which I wasn't with a ton today, offensively, they had their best session at the last session of the day. They did 3 team periods, 3 11-on-11s, kind of down by the red zone. They scored a number of touchdowns down there. Really good throw. Flacco had a number of really good throws, ran a couple trick plays. Really highly competitive, though. I've been asked if they won or lost. I don't know if they won or lost, but they won because of how competitive they were in these 2 days.
Yeah, the flip side of that is, remember, that the narrative is Eagles are going to be one of the best teams in a loaded NFC. Browns are not thought to be. They're among the worst by the national experts. So to go out and be able to hold your own up front, that tells me the national folks are underestimating what the Browns could be this season.
I'm gonna say this too, is that, when you look at the offensive line, they've struggled running the ball a little bit in camp. And as I see them going against Philadelphia Eagles, so they go against the Browns defensive line that is penetrating big guys, Mason Graham, Malik, Collins, you got Shelby Harris. These guys are big physical guys getting upfield. And then you go against two guys who are 350 pounds and immovable objects. So I thought it's a credit to the offensive line that they're getting better. And I think it's a work in progress, but you saw some double teams happen today. You saw a little bit of crease. You see them sticking with it, right? They're sticking with that identity. And I'm with you. So when you can run the ball, which I think they're going to try to do, and you can stop the run, and I'd be really surprised if the Browns aren't really good at stopping the run immediately this fall. You got a chance to win some games. They got to win on first down, but their ability to stop the run and then unleash those pass rushers is pretty special. They were very, very good rushing Jalen Hurts both days.
What about Dillon Gabriel? They're going to reevaluate him after this to make sure he's good to go, hamstring-wise, relative to the preseason game. What did you see from Gabriel, who got some reps?
Well, I thought he had his best throw today to Harry Fanning. It was good to see Njoku get involved with Flacco as well. But he's been a mixed bag, right? And I'm very high on Dillon Gabriel. I think he's an outstanding quarterback. I liked him coming out of the draft. However, his accuracy, as you and I have talked about, has struggled. Today he threw some really good balls, and he also had some misses. I think Saturday is going to be a really big day for him if he's able to play. He's got to get in there some live action. Even today, even though everybody's live per se, the quarterbacks aren't in these type of drills. So I think it's really important for him to see game action. I think it's very important for him to be 100% healthy. Obviously, that quarterback room has struggled. Joe Flacco has kind of risen to the top, not only by his performance, but his ability to stay healthy. He's available, and that's what these quarterbacks are struggling right now. I think it's very big for the next, this next week. Dillon Gabriel's really got to make sure that his accuracy is where it needs to be. The narrative is that he's too short and he can't do things, and only way you can do it, you prove people right or you prove people wrong. So he's got to go out and be really accurate Saturday and into next week, so he can push if he plans on playing this fall.
Any individuals that stand out on either side of the ball in the second day of joint practices grabbed your attention?
Well, I thought the tight ends got involved today. Obviously everybody's talking about Harold Fanning. It was nice to see Njoku get a touchdown on a corner route down where we were watching. Again, it was ones on ones, goods on goods. So he ran a really nice corner route on the safety linebacker type guy. So that was good to see. Harold Fanning he had a drop today from Flacco, great ball. But you could see his skill set in terms of where he can line up and the things he can do both in the run and the pass game. I think Jerry Jeudy's been consistently really, really good, obviously all through camp. Deontay Johnson had a drop today. He was good today, but he was outstanding yesterday, I thought. And then Myles Garrett has just been unblockable. I mean, even with the Eagles, it's literally, you can almost sometimes not run a play because he's so good off the edge. And I would just say as a whole, that defensive line with Graham and Collins, and two guys that I've really been impressed with fighting for a job is Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire. Those guys have been very, very good. They've improved their bodies. They're big, long kids. And I think they have a chance to be really good opposite Myles at that other 5 technique. Those two have been very impressive both days as well.
Let's talk a little bit about secondary. Yesterday, we heard Myles Harden flashed. Kevin Stefanski talked about it. The other guy that you keep hearing, keep making plays, is Chris Edmonds. Did you see both of them kind of show up again as well?
Yeah, that whole secondary, but Edmonds for sure. Myles Harden's competing again. The technique they're using, it's really, really. I thought both secondaries played really well, but the Browns secondary guys, Ward leads by example, but they're so good with going. Splitting the hands of the receivers late, even if the receiver catches the ball. They did a great job. A couple great plays the last 2 days with Ward on Devontae Smith where the ball was well thrown. He went up and tried to get it. and Ward split it late. Edmonds is a guy that I think really fits this Schwartz scheme because he can line up in the box, he can line up at the half safety, he can set the edge, he can blitz, he can do a bunch of different things. He kind of fits that second level with Schlesinger and Delpit, all those kind of guys, really not linebacker types, but just like long bodies that Schwartz likes. He can do a bunch of different things, which I think gives him versatility in being able to play and back up multiple spots. Yeah, Chris Evans has been really good. I think Miles Harden's been competing really hard. James had some good plays today. That secondary as a whole, though, has been really fundamentally sound with both their feet and their hands and what they're being coached to do. It's pretty fun to watch.
So other than Dillon Gabriel, and let's start with Dillon Gabriel, what do you need to see, assuming he's healthy, assuming he plays in the preseason game, and then who else are you watching Saturday at 1 in the second preseason game?
Well, obviously, Dillon, you want to see him play, right? You want to see him get in there, the operation, right? Underneath center, all the motions, all the movements. That's the one thing the last 2 days you've seen from Kevin Stefanski's offense is a ton of pre-snap movement. Things you're going to thought you were going to get last year with Dorsey, you saw these last 2 days. Almost motion and shifts on every single play. That means the quarterback's got to be really in tune in what he's seeing before the motion and after the motion. So you want to see the operation. You want to see him fundamentally be strong. You want to see, for me, I want to see his accuracy. The accuracy that I saw coming out of Oregon in terms of the arrow routes, the layups, right? He's got to make sure that he completes all those easy layups that are designed in this offense that happen a lot. So and then I want to see, obviously that second group of linebackers. Obviously, they have a good first group. I think Schlesinger is going to be outstanding. But what is that good rotation going to be with Bush and Baker and those guys? And who are going to be the guys that rotate in? Or are they going to be in more nickel where Hickman moves down? So it's interesting to see that second level. Who are those guys going to be in the second level? More linebacker types or more nickel types? Those are the kind of things I'll be watching for on Saturday.
Lance Reisland joining us from Philadelphia. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much. Appreciate you taking some time. Safe travels back to Cleveland. Thanks, Lance.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. See you guys soon.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good Browns coverage for cleveland.com as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to continue talking Browns. Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. A developing story concerning the Browns and Quinchon Judkins, the Browns' second-round pick. Legal issues with a assault charge. Well, Jordan Schultz, national NFL reporter for Fox Sports, is reporting that prosecutors are now not going to move forward with that. They have decided not to move forward with the case. So the case legally will be dismissed against Quinchon Judkins. That was in Florida. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, no legal issues. It's still a developing story. The league will still have its say, but this opens the way for Quinchon to potentially sign a contract and at least get into camp.
What it does do for me especially is make sense of how this whole situation was handled, because from how these things usually go down, I mean, it's very odd that the Browns did not sign him to a rookie deal, did not have him at camp. This makes a lot more sense, right? They were waiting until they felt like they could get a favorable word from the justice system. We'll see what happens with the NFL side of things, right? Remember, Deshaun Watson was never formally charged of anything. He was still suspended in 2022 for what the NFL's investigation found against him. We'll see what the NFL's investigation has or says about this whole thing, but this is one hurdle that they've cleared. Now they can actually get to the second part of this, which is getting him in camp and in dealing with the NFL about this situation. So it's a step forward in this process. I don't know if this really has any bearing on if he's going to get suspended or not, though.
Yeah, remember, Mike Hall didn't go to trial. They settled that, and he still ended up with 4 6-game suspension. So we'll see. All right.
And the slight difference in that situation is that he did plead no contest, right, in that situation,
Correct.
which makes it a little bit different than this. But, we'll see.
Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi asked about expectations for Dillon Gabriel, who appears to be the guy that will be starting the second preseason game.
At this point, a week ago, when you asked me this, I felt a positive vibe about Shedeur. I don't have that vibe. I don't have a negative. I don't know what to expect.
Okay.
And I'm being totally honest.
Oh, okay.
If I thought he was going to do badly, I'd say, doesn't feel good to me.
Okay.
I just don't know what to expect. I think there's as much anticipation in my mind seeing him in his first game as there was in Shedeur. There really is. I mean, what is it about they like him? Let's see it. And like you said, he won't. Shedeur went under the lights and played well. Now in a game situation, can Gabriel do that? So I think there's a lot of pressure on him, just like there was on Shedeur last week, and that's good.
Quincy, yeah, I mean, coming off an injury, you didn't get to see him a little bit. It's been kind of a mixed bag, so it's going to be real interesting to see what shows up against the Eagles.
Oh, well, we finally actually get to see him, right? Because like everything that we've seen through him is like, oh, we get a video here, we get a report there, right? It's not really getting to look at the guy and watch how he goes in and out the huddle and watch how he goes through the process, and then you're going to get all 22 film access to it, right? So this is really the first look, similar to how last week was the first look the Browns had to Shedeur Sanders. It's a similar thing here for Dillon Gabriel, and I think the expectation should be similar, right? If Dillon Gabriel goes out there, he doesn't look amazing, it's the preseason. But if he does look good, he does show some things, and that's reason to be cautiously optimistic, right? You don't want to get too carried away with the preseason. I think we all remember, I think a caller on this show after a couple of DTR preseason games came on here and was like, oh, that's it. DTR is going to be Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. We have solved the quarterback problem. I can't count to you how many times we felt like we solved the quarterback problem in August, but you never solve the quarterback problem in August, do you, right? So, whatever you see there, if it's great, I think it's important to take it with a grain of salt. And if it's not, same kind of deal there, right? Like, don't overreact to it. Now, I say that knowing full well that we live in the internet era and people going to overreact. So, try to do your best out there.
Without question. All right. This is concerning, though. This is Ross Tucker. Now, he has the Ross Tucker podcast. He's also the Eagles preseason color analyst. He was at joint practices. This is what he saw from Gabriel after the first joint practice.
It seemed like a lot of bootlegs and a lot of bootlegs where nobody was really open. And he just kind of had to throw it away. It's kind of remarkable how little he looks out there, by the way, but I guess we kind of knew that. But, I mean, it was bootleg after bootleg, but the Eagles seemed pretty prepared for that. And so he would boot out, and there'd be nobody there, and he would just kind of chuck it. And there were a decent amount of incompletions that I saw on those plays.
And again, he played better today, but that's concerning because if you're with a guy that is undersized, when he boots out, you got to have the answers for him.
Yeah, I mean, if they know you're going to boot out all the time, right, then you're not going to have answers there because it's really easy to cover. So, I mean, the whole element of play action is like you catch people off guard. So that's the thing. And that's why I think I want to see Dillon Gabriel play because we're not going to have definitive answers to this until he actually gets in there and plays in live contact games during the preseason and during the regular season, right? So this is an opportunity to get more answers. When you're doing practice and you're doing 7-on-7s and you're doing team drills, the height could factor in, the height could not. there's a lot of ways to get around it, right? But when it's a live game, there's no way around it. You're going to have to throw over these guys and find these passing lanes and deal with the live rush. And I think that's why it's important to get live looks on him, right? Even if he doesn't look great right now in camp, you still want to confirm whatever it is that you think you're seeing in camp because we might be surprised that he's more shifty than we think he is, and he's slippery. He's sliding out, finding passing windows, and looking like young Russell Wilson out there. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but hey, this is what the game is for, right? This is why you play the game and why this is going to be a very important game for Dillon Gabriel because he has so many questions that you can only answer by seeing him play football.
So there's some members of the national media have a narrative that, Shedeur has not had a fair shot to win the quarterback job. What are your thoughts of that?
I mean, no fifth-round pick has a fair shot to win the starting quarterback job, right?
Nor should they.
Yeah. Honestly, if the Browns were like, let's just give this fifth-round pick every chance to start, people would be like, well, why didn't you draft him earlier, right? No, it would be a conspiracy there. There's no winning in this situation for the Browns. They're treating him like a fifth-round pick. That's where they drafted him. We'll see if he plays himself out of that tag. It's not very hard to do so. If he shows any promise whatsoever on the football field, he'll easily play himself out this tag. The idea that the Browns are going to actively suppress what they think is good quarterback play because it's Shedeur Sanders when this franchise is absolutely desperate for a quarterback play. I mean, this is the team that traded for Deshaun Watson. Like, we want a quarterback to be on this team to be successful any means necessary. So, look, if Shedeur can play, don't worry. He's going to play, right? And also another thing for anybody worried about this, the quarterback room, the quarterback rep situation, you don't have to count it right now. I'm being honest with you. This is going to sort itself out throughout the season. The Browns have played, 25 seasons since coming back, Dave? 3 of those seasons, they've had a full-time starter for the whole year. So that tells you you're going to play multiple quarterbacks this year. 41-year-old Joe Flacco by the end of the season. Last time he played 17 games, every top quarterback in the league was in college. That was a very long time ago. And, Kenny Pickett's never played more than 12 games, never started more than 12 games in a season. So you're going to see other quarterbacks this year. Dillon's going to play. Shedeur's going to play. It will sort itself out. There will be opportunities to be had. And if Shedeur is ready to go in his rookie year, he'll be able to showcase that at some point this season. It's not something that we have to really worry about, right? Like, it's going to happen. They played PJ Walker for like 5 games a couple of years ago. They had to play Bailey Zapp for a couple of games last year. This is a team that is going to have to play multiple quarterbacks because they don't have an answer right now. And they're looking for an answer. And if an answer provides itself, then they're going to be thrilled to take it.
I'm curious, you went through 5 Browns that we need to see more of. Take us through that and who you are looking at that way.
I'll pop off some names that I think are especially important. I want to hear, and it sounds like he had a good week. The whole offensive line had a good week against Philly, which is very encouraging. But like, DeJuan Jones is so important to this football team, right? And everything that's going forward. Because if he is the answer at left tackle, if he can hold his own there, that solves so many problems for this team going forward. It gives you so much more flexibility, and it allows you so many different avenues to improve the offensive line while still getting cheaper. So he's somebody that I want to make sure that the Browns are seeing more from, right? Cedric Tillman is another guy. Ultra productive when he started getting the ball last year, but, we're not seeing that level of play right now in camp from him that you saw before he had the concussion last year. It looked like he was on his way to have a little bit of a breakout. The question for him this year, can he be an 800-yard wide receiver? Can he be a solid number 2, potentially an upper tier number 2? He's also a big body, right? Can he be a big body threat as a wide receiver? I don't know if you've been out there, but he's big now. Like, he is a massive guy. And if he can use that frame to help the Browns in the red zone, that will be something that they can benefit from tremendously. And then all of a sudden it changes how you look at this wide receiver room.
Yeah, I would agree. The other one, Deontay Johnson, seems to be kind of moving along, and he's another guy that if he gets back to, Steelers Deontay Johnson, you got something there.
Yeah, the thing with him, because he had a really good practice on Monday, but his preseason game was pretty bad. And the same thing happened with like Tevin Jenkins too. And these are 2 guys who have started before. I don't know what is going on with them? Was that like a veteran not really caring about the preseason thing, or was that kind of indicative of what's going on behind the scenes? I think what they do this week in joint practice, how the team evaluates them, and what they do in this preseason game is going to be heavily scrutinized by this team, because the effort that was in there in the preseason game from both of them was just so far below what they're capable of that I can't imagine it was a good effort there.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side break, we'll talk a little bit about a couple of rookies, Mason Graham, Dylan Sampson. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Veteran offensive lineman Joel Bitonio with his thoughts on what he's seen so far from Browns' first-round pick defensive tackle Mason Graham.
He's explosive. I think his football IQ is like tremendous. You know what I mean? Like, he knows football and knows how to make plays. I think it took him a couple weeks because he's a two-gap shed guy in college, and now he's penetrating and you know, our defense likes to say FSU. And so he's learning that. But from what I've seen and what I've gone against Malik most of the time because he mostly plays over me. Yeah. But I've seen some big improvements. I think his pass rush has improved, and his ability to kind of wiggle out of blocks is pretty impressive as well.
Quincy, I know you've been impressed with Graham, so have I. Why do you think we're not talking about him enough?
I mean, it's just not a sexy position, right? Just because it lacks sex appeal doesn't mean that it's not a very important position. But it's not a position where, you know, you can show your friend who kind of keeps up with football, show him this guy on your phone and be like, oh, man, look how amazing he is, right? We even deal with this with somebody who does play more of a marquee position than Myles Garrett, where, like, so many people will just tell you throughout the season, I don't see what he does, because, like, he plays edge, right? If he played running back, wide receiver, or quarterback, you know, we would obviously see how good Myles Garrett is at his job. This is one of those positions that's not super demonstrable, right? Especially in training camp, in preseason. Maybe we will start to get more recognition for him during the regular season, but the fact that, you know, Joe Bitonio speaking highly of him, Wyatt Teller speaking highly of him, he's having success versus a really good Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. He's looked solid throughout camp, and he's been with the first team all offseason, and he's looked like he's belonged the whole time. That is exactly what you were sold when the Browns took Mason Graham, which is somebody who could step in day one, be a starter, and eventually develop into a potential all-pro level guy.
Yeah, and you know what? Schlesinger's another guy that I think is kind of along those same lines. He might even be better than advertised. And you know what? Think about the middle of that defense with those two for as long as they're going to be here. That should that'll keep Jim Schwartz here for a while.
Oh yeah, hopefully it keeps Tarver here too. He's done a great job with the linebackers. And I think the important thing for like perspective on this, right? When the Browns drafted Joe Thomas and Brady Quinn in 2007, everybody was talking about Brady Quinn during training camp, right? Like, that was the big story. He's from Dublin, Ohio. He was a Browns fan growing up. He had a good first preseason game. And then slowly but surely, we were like, wow, this Joe Thomas guy, he's really good. That's the story, right? I think something similar like that could happen with Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, where you're looking at those guys and they just belong out there, right? And you can sometimes just feel it with rookies where you're like, okay, this guy truly understands the rhythm of the game. He's going to be okay. You're not really concerned about him. You can move on to focusing on other guys who might show you a little bit more concern.
So Browns rookie running back Dylan Sampson, with what he's trying to improve on here in camp.
Every day you just try to get better, and you know, every little thing there's a area of focus, whether it's pass pro, whether it's, you know, taking the small chunks, you know, not always looking for the big plays, you know, just doing my job, you know. And I think I'm getting, you know, more comfortable in and out the huddle, playing at different positions. You know, my teammates are helping me so much, but those are reps that, are so valuable, and I don't take them lightly. I think, it's a lot of steps to take, but just going up there, being physical, being patient. First of all, knowing my keys and my reads, getting that studying with the O-line, that's starting to become, more comfortable with me, just seeing all the different fronts. And that's why I'm glad we got to go out here against this defense, especially on the second day. It kind of feel like the fourth quarter, kind of when you're in that huddle and you break the huddle and you got to find a way to get things done. And that's how it felt today. But, that's how it's going to feel in the game.
So, a young guy, I was a little surprised we didn't see him a little bit more in that first preseason game. I want to say SEC Offensive Player of the Year. So, guy can play a little bit.
Absolutely, right. The question is how long is that transition really going to take for him? My concern is he's coming out of Tennessee. He's not the biggest running back in the world. Those are two things that have proven to be more timely transitions for guys, right? Size at that position, and also that Tennessee offense, for whatever reason, guys take forever to transition out of. And it's interesting too, because if Shedeur makes that little touch pass he tried to go with at the beginning of the game, I think we're talking about Dylan Sampson way differently today than we are right now, where we just didn't get to see much of him. But that was who that pass was targeted to. There were a couple of passes where I think Dylan Sampson could have gotten the ball there and done something with it and given us an opportunity to really praise him. So I expect those opportunities to be there for him this week versus Philly in this preseason game. The question is Dylan Gabriel going to execute on these opportunities? Because the running back in preseason, it's the checkdowns are always open, but you want to get the ball in his hands, see what happens, and the Browns are going to call a ton of screens, especially for an undersized quarterback in this kind of a situation.
By all accounts, Browns offensive line kind of held their own against a really good Eagles defensive line. What do you think the plan is to fix the Browns offensive line? It needed fixing. Does the scheme go a long way there?
I think who's playing quarterback matters a lot in that conversation, right? We saw this fluctuate before between Deshaun Watson and then Joe Flacco. Even before that, Baker Mayfield had his own issues with getting sacked a ton. And then you saw that kind of change whenever we would switch somebody else out in there for Bake. So, yeah, I think that matters. Who's playing quarterback, it matters. But I think what's really you're seeing is just this offensive line has so much chemistry together that if they are confident in what they are doing and what they are being asked to do from a pass pro standpoint, they're still able to execute that at a pretty high level, which is really nice to see. And again, it's like DeJuan Jones doesn't seem like he's a big hole in this offensive line, right? Obviously you're worried about Jack Conklin staying healthy, but you feel better about your tackle depth with Cornelius Lucas there. Pass blocking, I expect this offensive line to be pretty fine, especially if Joe Flacco ends up being the starter. The real question is how much can they move people on the offensive line when it comes to the run game to be able to jumpstart that, given that we're expecting some slow starts from our running backs.
Yeah, without question. All right, before I let you go, you think there's a shocking trade on the horizon for the Browns?
Probably not. I know people want them to go get T-Mac or make the move out there to go get Micah Parsons. The only way I could see that is if from day one, like Shedeur or Dylan look like there could be top 5 quarterback material, and the Browns are like, oh man, we got 4 years to capitalize on. Let's do a strategic pivot. Let's go all in on this year. But this team is building the building blocks for their next window, right? And that's right after they get rid of the Deshaun Watson contract. That's when they're going to start really aggressively going for what they feel like or hope could be their next championship window. Right now, they're trying to assess who's going to be in that next window. Who do we need to keep? Who are we going to say goodbye to, right? But I think that's really about assessing where they are, how much further they have to go, and how much they're going to have to spend after they get rid of the Deshaun Watson contract in a few years to get back to the level that they hope to be at.
Quincy Carrier, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage, really good and insightful stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. Straight ahead, we're still talking Browns.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. Browns with a day off before they will face the Eagles in the second preseason game at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Offensive lineman Joel Bitonio, after the second joint practice today with the Eagles, how he sees the Browns' run game developing.
Hard to tell in a practice where you're not tackling. I think the couple times we've been live in our camp and stuff like that, they've had some good things. We know the Eagles' defense is, a great run-stopping defense. They've done some really good things, obviously Super Bowl champs. But there were some good moments. Like, we had some good pops, and usually, it's run game. There's one play that, misses a block or something, and it looks bad. But for the most part, I think it's coming along, and I think we're getting to a good point.
Is this a good couple of days to test that out, though, just because it is a different front, a different defense than what you guys used to?
Yeah, I mean, they're a 3-4 base defense, run a lot of penny fronts and stuff like that. So our defense is very 4-down or 6-1. And for us to get a chance to go against someone else and some great players is a good time to test things out.
What was sort of the big takeaway when you guys went back and looked at yesterday, kind of broke it? What did you feel like you needed to improve on? What was the biggest kind of things?
I think for us we had too many MAs. I think we had 70-some plays, and there was a lot of MAs, and we were like, hey, if we're not going to even give ourselves a assignment correctly, we're not going to have a chance here. So just playing a new defense, seeing a few looks that we hadn't seen on film yet, and just understanding like, hey, we can communicate up there and find a way to pick it up correctly.
Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast. Casey, if you can hold your own as an offensive line against the Eagles' defensive line, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I think you could definitely argue that the Eagles were the best defensive front in all of football last year. So to get that kind of litmus before you go to the season and actually in practicality see how you stack up against, especially since it is a 3-4, and if you just look inside our division with the Ravens and Steelers, you're going to see that type of front. So to get that kind of like elite level look early in the season and have success against it is something you can lean on as you go forward.
So word out of Philadelphia is the defense played really good again against an offensive line of the Eagles that, again, is really good. Now they're banged up, but how good of a sign is that Myles Garrett was in the backfield a lot, Mason Graham was in the backfield a lot?
Yeah, and we were hearing these reports coming out of our own camp about how they were just dominating practice, and you start to wonder, is it not because the offensive line isn't good enough? So you're kind of getting these things answered now. The offensive line has looked competent in Philadelphia against one of the very best fronts. They just had a tough go because going against the Browns' defensive line is tough sledding for any NFL team, and we're seeing that in practicality against the Eagles. And they do have some players banged up on the inside, but this is the most talented two tackles on the same team in the league, and obviously an ascending center. And they're plug and play. They draft a year ahead with Tyler Steen, so they have people they can rotate in there who would probably start for a lot of other teams, just maybe not the Philadelphia Eagles. But to see them just disrupt and take over, you start to see what the blueprint of what this defense could be and what the game plan is going to be throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't mean they're going to dominate. It means, all right, the pieces that need to be good look like they could be good.
Yeah, which allows Jim Schwartz to kind of lean on his strengths, and he knows what he has, and he's seen it. And I know they did a live session today where it was back-to-back sacks from both sides of the line, with McGuire and Garrett. So you start to see it come together with what the vision was, and everyone outside of Cleveland has a big question mark on the opposite defensive end, but there's talent there. There's talent there, and you're seeing it, against one of the very best fronts and very best tackles in the league. So to get those kind of looks and just build that confidence, because you're going to face some elite level offenses. You're going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. So you're going to have to defensively. You got to fire out the gates. There's not going to be any time for wiggle room. So the fact that they're getting this work in right now and looking as good as they are, I think that bodes well.
Safety Grant Delpit after the practice talked. What they've learned about each other as a defense, being the Browns.
I feel great. I think that this practice shows, carrying over from Carolina, how we trying to build this foundation and really take care of our business and see what kind of defense we could be on the defensive side and really team in general. So I think this should really boost confidence for a lot of guys, going against the former Super Bowl champs. No, you're good. My bad.
What have you learned about your defense in these 2 days?
I learned we play fast. I learned we play the best when we play fast. And I think that's Schwartz's mentality, getting to that ball, getting to the Brown thing. So it's great when we get to go up another team. You got that built up, energy and stuff. You can kind of let it out a little bit and really be more physical. And I think that's when we see our defense at best.
And again, that physical against the Eagles. That's another check that box.
Yeah, the buzzwords I'm hearing there: fast and physical. That right there, that's Jim Schwartz's defense to a T. So the fact that they're feeling like this already kind of catching their groove before the season gets here, I mean, I think they know what they're capable of based on what they did 2 seasons ago. So to kind of be in this position now, getting this test against the Eagles and feel like they're hitting their stride, and Grant's been a part of some good defenses already. So for him to feel confident in what they did and the fact that they are fast and they are physical, that's just going to bode well heading into this season. We don't know what to expect on offense, but we know what we should expect on defense, and we know they expect that out of themselves. So for him to speak that way kind of lets you know that he feels the defense is on track to be one of those elite units in the league.
So Browns quarterback Kenny Pickett has been hampered with a hamstring. Gave us an update on his injured hamstring and when he might be able to go. This is today after the practice as well.
Yeah, I feel like I'm turning the corner a little bit this week, which is really positive. I was able to run a little bit more yesterday, so I'm getting there. Just taking a day at a time. Obviously it's extremely frustrating. I'm only being able to get like 7-on-7 lately and some one-on-ones, but just focus on trying to take advantage of those as much as I can.
Do you feel like next week you should be able to, knock on wood, be able to get out there?
I can't say that yet. It'll be close. I try to give myself 24 hours to be as angry as I could be, and then just turn the page. Every day, doing as much as I can. It truly is a 24/7 grind to try to get back 100%. So I'm doing absolutely everything I can. Hopefully I can push it to get out there. I want to be smart, but at the same time I want to be out there competing. So you're kind of like walking that fine line.
And Casey, Joe Flacco's going to end up being the starter. Right now it's a formality. The question is, does somebody give the Browns a 4th or a 5th round pick for Kenny Pickett? And what is that magic number? It's a guy who 15-10 as a starter. I know he doesn't have the stats, but he's a competent NFL quarterback.
That's not common. There's not all those guys running around. And if you look at a situation like in Los Angeles with Stafford not being able to play and they have Garoppolo in place, but if Garoppolo has to be the starter, do they feel confident with Stetson Bennett as his backup? You start looking at potential landing spots, but none of that matters if you can't get healthy and get on the field and kind of drum up interest, And selfishly, I want to see more out of these rookies, and we were kind of worried about like how they're going to divvy up reps going into this camp. Well, the injuries have kind of taken care of that. They've divvied them up how they've had to, and right now, like if Dylan Gabriel's healthy, I want to see a large section from him in this upcoming game, probably similar to what we saw out of Shedeur last week with getting 2+ quarters and then Snoop Huntley, and we'll see where all that falls. But until he gets healthy, he can't even drum up interest outside. But I'm sure that's the thought process. But there's many people that are in Berea thinking that he still has a chance to be the starter. So I don't see it. That doesn't mean it isn't possible. I'm with you. I'm in the camp of Joe Flacco gives you your best chance right now, and he gets the most confidence out of the locker room. They believe in him. So I think that to me that's a no-brainer to start the season. But they could still see a path for Pickett. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it isn't there.
No, that's fair. I don't think there's a path to be Week 1 starter, but again, stranger things have happened with the Browns at quarterback than that. Which of the young guys have really stood out through a preseason game and 3 joint practices? Young guys that you want to see more of, that have intrigued you by what they've done.
I will start with Jamari Thrash. That was someone they needed, somebody to step up, one of those young guys to develop, and we've kind of been waiting on that, where they've been drafting these guys and they kind of wait in the wings, but they never really ascend past wide receiver 4 or 5. He's making plays. He's making plays in camp. Every time he's on the field, it's evident. They're working him a lot out of the slot. That's something they need to solidify. So that's one person I would start with. But I would go for a deeper cut on the other side of the ball with Aiden Huntington. It's jarring for me watching a number 66 float around the field on special teams like a demon out down there making tackles 40 yards downfield. But you just see his inside-outside versatility even on the defensive side of the ball, and you start to see a player, a UDFA, that there's a path. There's definitely a path where he could be kind of sneak this kid on the roster, and he's very exciting. But first and foremost, I got to get him out of number 66. It's breaking my brain when I see him out there. So hopefully that roster cut down so he can get a better number.
Yeah, the other thing is I would kind of expect, because there's a number of guys on the defensive line that can play in the NFL, and the Browns are going to run out of spots. So that might be an area. Go find a guy that is heavy in running backs or wide receivers, and you trade a D lineman for a running back or a wide receiver.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the line as it's constructed, I kind of circle back to like Shelby Harris or someone like that who might provide value to another team that you could flip for a backup running back, even a cornerback. If you start to look at areas that the Browns, their depth isn't awesome. But the Browns do have a dearth of talent on the defensive line, and guys who can play multiple positions, kick inside, kick outside, and you start to, you can play the math game by eliminating, like, well, if this guy can play, like Alex Wright can play inside or outside, can you carry one less defensive tackle because of that, and kind of use those depth pieces as trade bait as we get closer to here before roster cutdowns? And these preseason games are huge stages for these guys to show, not just for the Browns, but like to the entire league, put good stuff on tape and kind of increase your value. And there's some players here that might not be able to, probably not even make the 53, and might be borderline practice squad here, but could be on the 53 on other teams. So those are the kind of pieces you're looking for.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll hear from Kevin Stefanski, talk a little bit more about what's coming up for the Browns in the second preseason game with the Eagles. Sports4CLE, be right back.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. Before today's second joint practice with the Eagles, Kevin Stefanski talked about what the Browns found out about themselves in the joint practices and what he saw from second-year cornerback Myles Harden.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I think training camp in of itself, you're finding out about yourself, and that's personnel-wise, that's schematically what guys can and can't do. So there were a number of times we put players in positions yesterday to see what it looked like and see if they can handle X, Y, or Z. And I thought for the most part we found out some guys are going to be capable of doing some things for us. He did. He had a good day. Myles is very, very competitive, and a competitive kid, strong. He needs to keep on a progression, which is every day trying to get better, and I think he's got the right attitude.
Casey, with MJ Emerson, the injury, there's spots to be claimed, and Harden is a guy they liked. They drafted him, and then he got hurt last year.
Yeah, the Emerson injury is a tragedy. What I believe he was going to do, but it does open up opportunities for other players. And the Browns, in the areas that they've had detrimental injuries affect their defense this year, they have decent replacements ready in place, but it opens up holes in other areas. So with Newsome playing on the outside, I feel okay there. But you start to look at who's going to man the nickel, who's going to be that slot defender, and I think it's going to be a combination of obviously Cam Mitchell was first in line, and I got to be honest, I think he's had a pretty rough go of it, at least in the stuff that we've been privy to. Maybe behind the scenes it's going different, but that's my take on it from here. Myles Harden is a guy who could step in there and give you that good rep from the inside. Like he's an explosive athlete. He's tenacious. He's a good run defender, which being a nickel, you kind of need to have that in your back pocket. But I can also see a world where this team runs a ton of 3 safety, bringing someone like Jenkins down to run the slot, or Casey. Hickman on occasion, and kind of rotate that ability. And obviously we know Grant has those type of abilities, but he's best left free to kind of roam and be a difference maker. But I think you're going to see a good bit of three safeties to kind of cover up for their deficiencies there. But this is a positional group. I would not be shocked if they do make a move before they go into the season and bring someone else in with some more experience, even if it's just to be a depth piece, because after Ward and Newsome, I don't know what you really have on the outside now. So it's definitely a more fragile room than I would have said before the Emerson injury. But Harden is one of those guys who could step up and kind of check that box.
So veteran offensive lineman Joel Bitonio talks about the development of DeJuan Jones at left tackle and how important the chemistry is between him and Jones, left guard, left tackle.
You hope, all season long you'll have the same guy next to you because that's who you've been working with. And he's trying every day to be the best version of himself. And there's tough days and there's good days, especially with Miles, that he's out there battling. So it's good, though, because you want to work the double teams. You want to work the communication. I thought today, like in our 2-minute period, we had a couple twist pass-offs that were really solid. So it's just taking those steps and continuing to improve those. Yeah, he's getting more comfortable. I think naturally he feels like he's the right tackle, but it's like, hey, with your position, we want you to try left, and he's developing there. But it's really the growth of, really competitiveness and fighting through tough plays. Like, everybody knows they're going to have tough plays, but he's trying to grow as a player in that sense where it's like, hey, I had a bad play. We got to play the next play. It's a 60, 70-play game. But he's doing a good job in that, and I think this was a good test where, it was hot. It was tough out here, new guys, and he was really fighting through it.
So, Casey, you're not going to hear a left tackle is doing great. So if we don't hear much about DeJuan Jones, that's a great sign.
Yeah, the thing that I was looking to hear is as long as he's not getting rest days, as long as he's out there competing, because I have no doubts about his physical abilities. It's his availability that I think kind of gives everyone pause because he has to hold up for the breadth of a season. But physically, he's the real deal. God just didn't make that many people with that frame and that kind of footwork. And DeJuan Jones was touched, and now it's about staying healthy. And that, obviously we saw the weight loss over the course of the offseason, and he's coming off an injury, mind you. So the fact that he's active and not being given a rest day, I will say that I would prefer to see him in preseason action. I know a lot of these guys that are the cemented starters you're not going to see. And I have no doubt that DeJuan has got that spot locked down, but I kind of want to see it in practicality. Now we'd all be changing our tunes if he goes out there and pulls a hammy in the first quarter, but I think that I want to see it in action, and he's getting that work in these joint practices, so we probably won't even see it this week. But next week I'd like to see him dress and go out there and kind of show how dominant he can be, because he's someone who stands to make a lot of money off this audition. That is a premium position. I know in his mind he thinks he's a right tackle, but with his frame and footwork, scoot on over, big boy. I'm sure his agent will agree. Left tackle's where he needs to be, and I just want to see him perform this year.
If he shows that he's a quality left tackle, the Browns and Jimmy Haslam will happily write the check to make sure that he stays here. All right, assuming Dylan Gabriel's healthy and he's going to play, and he's going to play substantial plays in the second preseason game. What would be really good things to see? What would concern you if you saw it with Dylan Gabriel? Because we haven't seen him in game action yet.
Yep. Just be a point guard, operate the offense, stay in front of the sticks, execute. The one thing that I'm going to be looking for in particular is him making plays from within the pocket. Every time that we're seeing these clips, and I'm not boots on the ground, but I know a lot of their practice reps have revolved around him moving the pocket and rolling out, which you can get away with that for a while, but defensive coordinators will start cutting half the field off from you when they realize that's all you can do is roll out. So he has to win from within the pocket. So I want to see that. I want to see those reps and see it look smooth in that context. So he's not always having to manipulate the pocket, either side or roll out to get his passes off. So that's what I need to see to feel confident. And we talked about Kenny Pickett earlier. Kenny Pickett's going to be here until one of these rookies prove that they are definitively good enough to be an NFL backup and could go in a game at a moment's notice. And the only way you can do that's proven in game reps. So this is going to be huge for Dylan Gabriel. I know the coaching staff's very high on him, and it feels like the fan base is lower. You got to go show. You got to prove that you can do those things. And for me, it's winning from within the pocket and not getting caught in bad plays. So I just want him to see him be a field general, see him be a point guard, and if he does that, I'll feel a little better about the situation.
What if you saw would concern you? What would be like, ew?
Well, obviously his size. I mean, he's diminutive. So when you see him behind the line and the ball gets snapped and he just gets swallowed and you can't see anything other than the line of scrimmage, but it's about his vantage point from back there. And we've seen other smaller quarterbacks be able to thrive from within the pocket. It might be have to take a slightly deeper drop, someone like Drew Brees. And Kyler Murray is another guy that I kind of look at, and I'm not comparing Dylan Gabriel to Kyler Murray, but stature-wise, he's someone who had to learn to win from within the pocket from a smaller stature. So that's kind of it. Can you navigate that chaos from within the pocket and still be effective without rolling out? And there's a place in Kevin Stefanski's offense for rolling out, no doubt. Turning your back and rolling out on a bootleg, that's hugely beneficial. But it can't be plan A because defensive coordinators are just too smart and they'll take that away immediately.
All right, other than Gabriel, who is the second preseason game important for? Who needs to play well?
Well, that's just it. Because if you look at the first preseason game, there were guys who were limited to 6 snaps or so that I want to see more of. I want to see Dylan Sampson. I want to see what this looks like. I know he's getting a ton of run as the number 1 running back. In the joint practices, he's been assuming the role of starter. I want to see that in practicality. I want to see it in action and how it marries now. Because they're not going to be playing the starting offensive line, how much can you really gain from him playing in the preseason? Probably not much. Selfishly, I want to see it. And another one is the other rookie, Harold Fandon Jr. I just think that he could be such a difference maker. And I look at the style of receiver that he is as a tight end, and it's just a walking mismatch. And his alignment versatility just gives you so much creativity that it opens up chapters of your playbook that haven't been there for Kevin Stefanski because his tight end two's always been a more traditional guy. Even though you might be able to split him off from the line and get him some ISO stuff on some linebackers, it's not what this kid's capable of doing. Now, rookie tight ends in the NFL, technically, you look over time, you can pick a few of them out that have had success, but usually it takes them longer to come along. But I think with how much 12 personnel the Browns run, you got David Njoku on one side that teams have to respect, and he can stay in line, and you can kind of move Harold Fandon around and just really catch teams with their hand in the cookie jar if they have slow linebackers or small safeties, and that's something I'm looking forward to seeing. And we saw I think he played 6 snaps in the first preseason game. I'd like to see him get a little bit of run so he can show what he's capable of.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon writes for the Orange and Brown Report. You can also catch him on the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.